Yeah, Jacoby Brissett's been the better quarterback in Arizona this year than Kyler Murray. This offense has been a better unit under Jacoby Brissett than it has been with Kyler Murray.
I just think that this is a question where both sides are probably going to have to sit down and figure out what's in both sides' best interest.
This is one of the most confusing stories in sports right now, so I need you guys to stay with me here because the Arizona Cardinals just made a decision that could change everything. And I'm not just talking about another injury report update or a routine quarterback switch during a lost season. No, what happened in Arizona this week might signal the beginning of the end for one of the most talented and controversial quarterbacks in the NFL. On Monday night, Jacoby Brissett led the Cardinals to a 27-17 victory over the Dallas Cowboys, snapping a brutal 5-game losing streak. It was Brissett's third start in place of Kyler Murray, who's been sidelined with a foot injury since week 5. But here's where things get really interesting and honestly a little messy, because it turns out this might not just be about the injury. Let me paint the full picture for you, because what's happening in Arizona right now is way more complicated than it looks on the surface. So real quick before we get to this video is sponsored. You guys have been flooding my DMs about our hit rate on Prize Picks. It's over 70% for this month. We've been absolutely dominating in both the NBA and the NFL. And I'm going to give you guys my pick of the week in just a sec. First, to sign up for Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code microphone so you can get $50 in lineups when you make a play of $5 or more. And then tail this pick. I have Devontae Adams and Tyler Warren each recording a touchdown, and I have JJ McCarthy getting under 214.5 pass yards. I think the line's gonna move on JJ McCarthy. This guy's been averaging like 150 pass yards a game. I don't care if he's going up against Baltimore. I expect him to have another game where he's getting the under in pass yardage. Now, if you guys want additional daily plays, I partnered up with a genius at making picks in a Discord server. The link to the Discord server is the WAP link in the description down below. It's the second link from the top. And thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So let me tell you why this is so confusing. I mean, take a look at what Adam Schefter said a few days ago on the Pat McAfee show.
Jacoby Brissett has played well, and even Rex Ryan said that he felt like the Cardinals offense operates better with Jacoby Brissett, Kyler Murray. I just think that this is a question where both sides are probably going to have to sit down and figure out what's in both sides' best interest.
And then during the trade deadline, once again, Adam Schefter doubled down on ESPN.
Jacoby Brissett going to start again on Sunday for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see how they move forward. Kyler Murray still not healthy, but Jacoby Brissett gets another start in Seattle.
So Kyler Murray suffered a mid-foot sprain back in week 5 against the Tennessee Titans. That was October 5th. Since then, he's missed 3 games. Watching from the sideline as his backup came in and honestly made things look pretty easy. Murray has been listed as limited in practice. The official word from head coach Jonathan Gannon before the Cowboys game was straightforward enough.
Kyler is not going to be ready to start the game, so Jacoby will start.
Fair enough, right? Injuries happen. You don't rush your franchise quarterback back from a foot injury, especially when his whole game is built on that explosive mobility. Through 7 years, Murray has run for nearly 3,200 yards and 32 touchdowns. A foot injury for him isn't like a foot injury for your traditional pocket passer. And then the bomb dropped, and I'm talking an absolute nuclear bomb that changes this entire narrative. Arizona radio host John Gambadoro reported that Jonathan Gannon told his show that even if Kyler Murray was completely healthy, he was going to start Jacoby Brissett anyway. Let me repeat that. Even if Kyler was healthy, even if that foot was 100%, Jacoby Brissett was going to get the start. And then just a few hours ago, Gannon confirmed it again.
As it relates to the quarterback in Seattle, Jacoby will start, and Kyler will keep working on his health bucket.
And Gannon revealed that the injury gave them more time to evaluate, but make no mistake about it, this is a performance-based decision now. This isn't about protecting Kyler's foot anymore. This is about who gives them the best chance to win football games. And if you pay attention to what Bruce Arians had to say about his former team, it kind of makes sense why.
I think with Jacoby Brissett, he's calmed them down, and their defense is playing lights out.
So yeah, this isn't just an injury situation, guys. This is a benching. The Cardinals are benching their franchise quarterback, the guy they gave $230 million to, the #1 overall pick from the 2019 NFL draft, the guy that they punted on Josh Rosen for a 32-year-old journeyman backup. Now, to understand how we got here, you have to understand just how brutal this Cardinals season has been. And I don't mean brutal like they're getting blown out every week. I mean brutal in the most gut-wrenching, soul-crushing way possible. Arizona started the season 2-0. They beat the Saints and they beat the Panthers. Everything looked promising. Then came the fall. The Cardinals lost 5 straight games by a combined 13 points. 13 points across 5 games. Let that sink in for a second. Week 3 against San Francisco, they lost 16-15 on the final play of the game. Week 4 at Seattle, they lost by a field goal. Week 5 at home against Tennessee, this one probably hurts the most. They led 21-6 at halftime, still up 21-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then completely collapsed. Running back Emari DeMercado had a walk-in touchdown. I mean, the man could have literally crawled into the end zone, but he dropped the ball at the 1-yard line before crossing. The Titans recovered. Tennessee scored 16 unanswered in the final 10 minutes. The final score was 22-21 Titans. Then with Murray out, Brissett nearly pulled off a comeback at Indianapolis, getting inside the Colts' 10-yard line with under a minute left before the drive stalled. They lost 31-27. The next week against the Packers, the Cardinals led again in the fourth quarter. They tried to go for it on 4th and 1 from their own 48 to ice the game. Brissett got stuffed. The Packers drove down and scored, and they lost 27-23. This Cardinals team became the first in NFL history to lose 3 consecutive games after leading by at least a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And get this, they've been outscored 44-6 in fourth quarters over their last 3 games before the Cowboys win. So you've got a team that's been in every single game, a team that's had leads, a team that's been competitive, but they just couldn't finish. Something was missing in those crucial moments, the ability to close out games, the clutch factor, whatever you want to call it, they didn't have it. And then Jacoby Brissett shows up and suddenly things look a little different. Look, I know what you're thinking. The Cardinals still lost those first 2 games with Brissett, but if you actually watched those games, you saw something. You saw an offense that moved the ball. You saw drives that sustained. You saw a quarterback who wasn't forcing things, who was taking what the defense gave him, who was operating within the system. And if you're a Marvin Harrison Jr. fantasy football owner, you're pretty happy about it. In his first 3 starts, Brissett has thrown for 860 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. Against the Colts, his old team, he threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was his first 300-yard game since week 11 of the 2022 season when he was with Cleveland. Against the Packers, another 2 touchdowns in a game they nearly stole on the road. And then Monday night in Dallas, everything clicked. The Cowboys came into that game averaging over 30 points per game at home. They scored 40 plus in every home game this season, and Brissett just picked them apart. Brissett finished 21 of 31 for 261 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. More importantly, he had 0 turnovers. He spread the ball around. He got Marvin Harrison Jr. involved early and often. Harrison had 7 catches for 96 yards in the first half alone and a touchdown. He connected with Trey McBride, made the throws when they mattered. And you know what else? Brissett became the first Cardinals quarterback since Carson Palmer in 2015 to throw for at least 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 consecutive games. Carson Palmer is the only time this franchise has had sustained quarterback success in the last decade. Even during the broadcast, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were openly saying they expected the Cardinals to stick with Brissett when Murray gets healthy. That's how good he's looked. So where does that leave Kyler Murray? Let's be real about what we're looking at here. This is year 7 of the Kyler Murray experience in Arizona. 7 years. Through 5 games this season before getting hurt, Murray completed 68.3% of his passes for 962 yards with 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He added 173 rushing yards and another score. Those numbers aren't terrible, but they're not what you expect from a guy making over $43 million this year either. Pro Football Focus gave him an overall grade of 72.1, which ranked 17th among 36 qualifying quarterbacks. His passing grade was 69.5, which is good for 20th. Another metric had him ranked 23rd among quarterbacks. This is supposed to be your franchise guy, your number 1 overall pick, and he's playing like a bottom 3rd quarterback. But it's not just about the stats, it's about what you see on tape. The offense with Kyler Murray this year looked stagnant. They couldn't establish the run. That's not all on Kyler, obviously, but when you're a dual threat quarterback, the defense has to account for you, and that should open things up. Murray was sacked 13 times through 4 games, the 3rd highest in the league at that point. And maybe most concerning of all, the Cardinals have only made the playoffs once with Murray as their quarterback. That was 2021, his 2nd year, and they went 11-6 and lost in the wild card round. Since then, it's been chaos, coaching changes, offensive coordinator changes, and through it all, Murray has been the one constant, and the results haven't changed. Stephen A. Smith said it before week 5. The Cardinals have reached their ceiling with Kyler Murray. He pointed out that Murray's been in the league long enough where he still doesn't have a single playoff win. He's costing the team $43 million, and while the supporting cast hasn't always been incredible, at some point you have to look at the quarterback. And at the same time, the Cardinals got Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins at a specific point, Trey McBride, and more recently they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., and he hasn't been able to make it work with Kyler either. And speaking of that $43 million, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the contract. Back in 2022, Murray signed a 5-year, $230.5 million extension with the Cardinals. It has an average annual value of $46.1 million, which currently ranks 12th among NFL quarterbacks. He still has 3 years and roughly $125 million left on that deal, with about $60 million of it guaranteed. His cap hit this year is $43.3 million. Next year, it jumps to over $53 million. That's an insane number for a quarterback who hasn't proven that he can be a winning player at this level. Now, could the Cardinals move on from him? Financially, it's complicated, but not impossible. If they trade him before the 2026 league year begins, they'd eat $17.9 million in dead cap, but save $35.3 million against the cap. That's actually manageable. If they cut him, that's where it gets ugly. A pre-June 1st release would count $57.7 million against the cap in 2026. A post-June 1st designation would split it to $50.5 million in 2026 and $7.2 million in 2027. For comparison, remember when Denver cut Russell Wilson? That set an NFL record with $85 million in dead cap split over 2 years. This will be in that same exact ballpark of financial devastation. But here's the thing. Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio wrote that while a trade won't happen before this year's deadline, a deal could absolutely be put in place before the first day of the 2026 league year. That's March. That's 4 months away. And Florio added that barring a return from Murray that sparks an unlikely playoff run, it would be a surprise if a trade doesn't happen in March. The Cardinals are 3-5 right now. They need to basically run the table to make the playoffs. Is that happening with this roster? Come on, be honest. There's something else going on here too, and maybe it goes back further than just this season. You remember the 2022 contract extension? That didn't just include the money. It included a clause that Kyler Murray had to complete independent study of game film, 4 hours per game week. The Cardinals later removed that clause after it became public and sparked a huge controversy, but the damage was already done. The implication was clear. Murray wasn't putting in the work. He wasn't studying like he should be. And to be honest, this is something that Kyler Murray is memed for repeatedly. He's notorious for investing most of his time playing video games like Call of Duty than it is for actually preparing for games. It's painted Murray with the reputation that he's never really shaken. Fair or not, when you're the franchise quarterback making this kind of money, you can't have people questioning your work ethic or your football IQ. And yet, here we are. Fast forward to now, and Pat McAfee is out there saying that Kyler Murray's future in Arizona is in question right now. He added that both sides are probably going to have to sit down at the end of the season and figure out what's best. When Pat McAfee, who's usually pretty plugged in with his sources around the league, is openly speculating about a divorce between Murray and the Cardinals, that tells you that this isn't just fan speculation anymore. This is real. So where does this go from here? Let's game it out. Scenario 1 is Jacoby Brissett keeps playing well. The Cardinals finish the season with him under center, and they look for a trade partner in the offseason. There are already articles floating around about potential landing spots. The Raiders, they're currently struggling with Geno Smith. Could Pete Carroll want to reset with a mobile quarterback? Miami, the Tua situation is uncertain. The market might be smaller than you'd think for a quarterback with this contract, but there will be suitors if the Cardinals make him available. The second scenario is the Cardinals keep both guys through next season, run some kind of competition, and basically force Murray to prove it all over again. But that seems unlikely given how Gannon has handled this. When your head coach says even a healthy version of your franchise quarterback wouldn't start, that's not a guy who's keeping his options open. That's a guy who's already made up his mind. Scenario 3 is Murray comes back, absolutely lights it up for the second half of the season, leads the Cardinals to an unlikely playoff berth, and makes everyone forget that this has ever happened. Could it happen? Sure. Is it likely? Look, I believe in second chances and redemption stories as much as anyone, but at this point, I need to believe it to see it. The reality is, it's hard to imagine that Arizona would go back to Kyler in the future after benching him for performance reasons. That's not how these things typically work in the NFL. Once you lose the faith of your coaching staff and front office, once they see what life can look like without you, it's nearly impossible to get that back. You can just ask Anthony Richardson. This Cardinals situation is fascinating because it's one of those rare rare moments where everything converges at once. You've got the injury that gave them an excuse to make a change. You've got the backup who's legitimately playing better football. You've got a franchise quarterback who's been good but never great, dynamic but never clutch, talented but never winning. You've got a contract that makes everyone uncomfortable, and you've got a coaching staff and front office that are running out of patience. 7 years is a long time in the NFL. It's long enough to know what you have, and what the Cardinals have in Kyler Murray is a player who can make incredible plays with his legs and his arm, who can dazzle you with his athleticism, who can do things that maybe 5 guys in the league can do, but he's also a player who's led them to 1 playoff appearance in 7 years, who hasn't won a playoff game, who disappears in big moments, and who they're now openly choosing not to play even when he's close to healthy. Is this the end of Kyler Murray in Arizona? Some around the organization think he may have already played his last game as a Cardinal. Whether it's this year or next year, it feels like we're watching the final chapter of the story play out. The question isn't really if anymore, it's when. And for Kyler, this has to be a wake-up call. He's 28 years old. He's entering what should be the prime of his career, and yet he's watching from the sideline as a 32-year-old backup takes his job and might not give it back. That's not where you want to be as a former number 1 overall pick. That's not where you want to be as a guy who's supposed to be the future of this franchise. The Cardinals play the Seahawks this Sunday. Jacoby Brissett will be under center. Kyler Murray might not even dress. And in a way, that tells you everything you need to know about where this is headed. Sometimes in the NFL, the writing isn't just on the wall, it's in neon LED lights, and it's impossible to miss. And this, in my opinion, is one of those times. The Kyler Murray era in Arizona is ending, not with a bang, but with a benching. And honestly, based on everything we've seen over the past 7 years, maybe it's about time. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.